Australia's Tasmanian devil. Renowned for its dangerous demeanour and terrifying temper. This is the world's largest carnivorous marsupial. They're fearless fighters. And frenetic feeders. Spending their lives screeching through the wild woods of Australia's island state, Tasmania. It's just one corner of this colossal, ancient continent. Home to some of the planet's most unusual and fascinating animals. This is the secret life of the Tasmanian devil. When the first European settlers arrived in Australia, they found themselves surrounded by animal life that was utterly unfamiliar to them. They came up with their own names for these alien creatures. The koala was dubbed the monkey bear. The spiky echidna became the porcupine anteater. And the oddball wombat, a marsupial, was called a badger, a beaver, and even a pig. These exotic creatures both mystified and delighted the new Australians. But there was one in Tasmania that totally terrified them. The settlers found the spine-chilling shrieks and unearthly wails that echoed round the bush at night so disturbing, they thought the animal that made them must be a kind of demon. They called it Beelzebub's pup, Beelzebub being one of the names for the devil. They're the size of a small dog, but so fearsome was the reputation of these animals, the early European settlers believed that if they fell from their horses in its territory, Beelzebub's pups would rip them limb from limb. Today, Beelzebub's pup is called the Tasmanian devil. And although it's never actually dismembered a human, it's still famous for its extraordinary screeches, yowls, and ear-splitting cacophonies. As well as its ferocious disposition. Devil fossils date back 70,000 years, suggesting the species is a relative newcomer. This carnivorous marsupial is a pocket predator that carries its young in a pouch and is always itching for a fight. In the wild, they live solely on the island of Tasmania, off the southeast coast of the Australian mainland, full of their preferred habitat, open forests and woodlands. It's thought that devils once lived on the mainland, but died out there. Perhaps because of competition with the dingo, a wild dog that arrived in Australia thousands of years ago and became an apex predator. But the dingo only made it to the mainland, which had already separated from Tasmania, so the island offered a safe haven for the surviving devils. But now they're facing extinction. The species is suffering from facial tumour disease, a deadly affliction they pass to one another through biting. It's estimated that since 1996, the population of Tasmanian devils has reduced by more than 80%, and they're now officially designated as endangered. It's nearing nightfall, and young male Carlos is emerging from his den. As devil numbers are in such sharp decline, he's part of a monitored population that is regularly health checked by conservationists. He's got an excellent sense of smell, and he picks up on a scent. He sets off from his den to find the source. At 2 years old, he's now an adult. Lifespan in the wild is only around 5 or 6 years. He weighs over 8 kilos and may reach 12 kilos. All that weight is packed into a stocky body between 1/2 and 3/4 of a metre long. He may be modest in size, but this is one of nature's most formidable predators. His sturdy physique is packed with muscle. His legs are short and strong, while his large head and neck support one of the most proportionately powerful bites in the animal kingdom. The equivalent of a dog 4 times his size, or for his body mass, more powerful than the bite of a tiger. The short, broad skull shape means the muscles in the jaw have increased leverage. Easily capable of crushing the skulls of live prey and slicing clean through bones, fur and sinew. Large parts of the devil's waking hours are taken up with trying to find food. Mainly nocturnal, but happy to move around in the day, the devil's robust frame means it's able to travel long distances at a stretch, up to 16 kilometres at a time, looking for live animals to hunt or carrion to scavenge. Although it doesn't defend a territory, it does have a home range that it regularly travels around. The size and shape of these ranges depends on how much food is in the area. Carlos is on his evening foraging expedition. And it isn't long before he runs into another devil. Devils spend a lot of time alone, but their home ranges often overlap, and when they do meet, there's almost always a fight. For the pugnacious, peppery devil, brawling comes as naturally as breathing. Females are just as feisty as the males and equally likely to engage in a rage-fueled fracas. For the males, it's all about dominance. Gaining ascendancy over their rivals will pay off once breeding season arrives in March, as females often favour dominant males. But these power plays to decide top devil take place all year, and they can be about almost anything. Arguments can happen over having the whole log to themselves. Or a blow-up could be over a tiny scrap of food. To a devil, it's all worth fighting over. Which is why a disease passed through biting has been particularly devastating to them. At the moment, Carlos is the local top dog, the most dominant male. He has to be even more aggressive than everyone else to keep his title. And he has to maintain his position all year long. Carlos has a pretender to his throne. Two-year-old Mungo. Every chance he gets, he challenges Carlos. He's looking to eventually usurp Carlos and take over his position as dominant male, giving him better chances at mating time. But so far, the battle-scarred Carlos has always chased off his challenger. He takes a lot of damage, but his backside is armoured with very thick skin. As well as giving a competitive edge at mating time, being the dominant male also gives an advantage on a day-to-day basis. At dinner time, he gets the first chance to feed. Tasmanian devils will eat almost anything. Insects, rabbits, rodents. They'll even actively hunt large live prey. Active hunting usually takes place at night, when the devil's eyesight comes into its own. It can see best in black and white, and its vision is based on movement, enabling it to spot the tiniest twitch the prey makes. White markings scattered over its flanks, chest and legs may help break up its distinctive predator outline. Hunting alone, using a combination of ambush and pursuit, a devil can bring down animals almost twice its size, like wallabies and wombats. It's an efficient, deadly hunter. But its real forte is scavenging. Devils spend most of their time looking for carrion, the carcasses and remains of dead animals. It's not uncommon to encounter it in the bush. Although devils live mostly solitary lives, when they find a large meal like this, they're able to come together. Much like vultures and hyenas in Africa, by cleaning up carcasses, they keep the bush free from rotting meat that could spread disease. And they're a friend to the farmer, who would otherwise have to bury the bodies of dead livestock. This is one of the devil's most valuable roles in the ecosystem. Like many carnivores, they use the easiest and fastest route through the carcass. By ripping their way through the tail area and the stomach cavity first, they can access the rump muscles and intestines as quickly as possible, leaving the harder to eat parts, like the head, for the latecomers. The devil's dentition is adapted for both capturing live prey and crunching carrion. Like dogs, they have a whopping 42 teeth, compared to a cat's 30. Long, sharp canines hold and pierce prey, and molars shear through fur, sinew and skeleton. They can eat all but the very biggest bones in a carcass. Tasmanian devils have even been known to chew through heavy steel wire. There are some large biological differences between marsupials like the Tasmanian devil and placental mammals like dingoes and bats. Marsupials have very short pregnancies and give birth to tiny unformed young, which then develop within a pouch. Most other mammals develop inside the mother, within a placental sac. Marsupials also have a metabolic rate around 30% lower than placental mammals. This means they can live using much less energy, a distinct advantage for when times get tough. But in times of plenty, The high-octane lifestyle of the devil means it typically uses more energy than its vegetarian cousins. So it aims to consume about 15% of its body weight every day. For these committed carnivores, the search for food is relentless. The local males notice something nearby. Their sense of smell is so acute that they can detect food from around a kilometre away. They stand on their hind legs to give them the extra height they need to pick up on a scent carried on the wind. When on the hunt for large prey like wallabies or wombats, the devil uses a mixture of stalking and short sprints. It relies on stamina rather than outright speed, but can still manage around 25 to 35 kilometres per hour for a few hundred metres. But if they're lucky, it'll be an easy meal, an animal carcass. The devils have struck gold. It's the remains of a wallaby. At first glance, it looks as though the devils are displaying their usual sky-high aggression levels over the carcass. But although it seems like a free-for-all, in fact, there's some devil etiquette at work here. The attitude is still present, but the bloodshed is absent. When feeding at a large carcass like this, the Tasmanian devil has evolved to be communal, which is extremely unusual for a carnivore that spends most of its time being solitary. Everyone, even lower-ranking individuals, will get to feed, even if it takes them a while to pluck up the courage. Communal feeding means all the local devils get a good meal at least once in a while, and that's evolutionarily advantageous for the whole species. But it means they have to make the switch from all-out war to having some table manners. At a big feed, they avoid direct conflict by using ritualised posturings. Although they snap and scream at each other constantly, their teeth rarely actually connect. Their profuse whiskers extend to just beyond the width of their shoulders, so they can use them as sensors to judge the distance between them and another devil. They may jaw wrestle, where they stand up and place their paws on each other's shoulders or chests, and shake their heads constantly while vocalising. This behaviour is about each devil defending the amount of food that he needs, not the whole carcass. This is how they can all feed together. The size of the carcass affects the extent to which the feeding devil will chase off a challenger. And as this carcass gets smaller, dominant male Carlos decides his neighbour needs to back off. But even this exchange is without injury to either side. Whilst battle may be temporarily suspended, the noise level is still high. And this has its own important function. It alerts other devils in the area to the carcass, so they can come and join in the communal feed, saving them the energy of looking for other food. Tasmanian devils have many excellent adaptations to Australia's often harsh environment. A vital one is that they can consume a massive 40% of their body weight in a single sitting. They then store this extra fat in their tails, giving them a superb advantage in times of famine, which can occur in the dry forests and coastal woodlands they prefer to live in. Unlike some of Australia's other marsupials, devils can also very effectively control their body temperature. This thermoregulation means they can be active in the often blazing hot daytime without overheating, which vastly increases their scavenging and hunting opportunities. Another adaptation is that they can get most of their water requirements from their food. This can help them in case of drought. A lower-ranking male picks up a scent. His eyesight is the weakest of his senses in the daytime, but it's good enough in combination with his sense of smell for him to find food when it's light. It's a lizard, a prime candidate for lunch, if he can track it down. The lizard takes cover under a rock. But the devil has another handy adaptation, wide feet with claws ideal for digging. Something scares him away. But he soon comes back. And this time, nothing will stand in the way of him getting his meal. The next animal to wander into devil territory is much more prickly. It's an echidna, an animal only found in Australia and neighbouring New Guinea. And it's utterly bizarre. It's from an early branch of mammals that still lays eggs like a reptile, and the males have a four-headed penis. Like the equally rare platypus, it's categorised as a monotreme, an animal that just has a single opening for excretion and reproduction. When threatened, it curls up and relies on its spikes to deter the aggressor. The spikes are actually modified hairs, and they're a sharp and effective deterrent against even the super teeth of the devil. The echidna can move them individually or in small groups. This means it can use them to right itself if it gets upended. Even though the strange newcomer appears to be impenetrable, its discoverer wants to keep it to himself. But eventually, they both have to give it up as a mission impossible. Meanwhile, Mungo, trying to climb the ladder of dominance and usurp Carlos, comes across a lower-ranking male who's found a piece of meat. But before Mungo can get involved, top devil Carlos turns up. Now a third devil joins in. Finally, Mungo gets in on the action. He grabs a big hunk of meat and makes his escape. The rules of tolerance that come into play at a big carcass so everyone can get to feed simply don't apply when the find is small, like here. It's every devil for himself. Carlos makes off with a large piece of the meat. And the other two fight over the scraps. Mungo did well out of the fight. Since they're mostly solitary, it's the presence of food that usually leads to many forms of devil communication. Vocalizations are the most obvious. There are at least 11 different kinds of vocalization. One of the most common is the arf sound, which shows curiosity. Other low-level sounds are the bark and snort and teeth chattering, which means the devil is uncomfortable. As the situation escalates, growling begins. Then full-scale screeching. This is when it's most likely to descend into a brawl or a chase. One of its most frequent communications is yawning. Its jaws can open to an astonishing 75 to 80 degrees wide. Humans can only manage around 33 degrees. A wide gape like this is common in carnivorous marsupials. The tiger quoll, a dedicated meat eater, also opens its mouth extremely wide. Even as a baby. Yawning is a displacement activity that says, I've got a fine set of teeth here, but at the moment I'm not interested in a fight. It also helps relieve built-up pressure in their oversized jaws. Devils can also communicate via a range of chemical signals, especially in their poop. A diet that's so varied and largely indiscriminate results in disproportionately large faeces. An average scat is around 15 centimetres long, but they can be 25 centimetres. And it can be full of surprises. Items that researchers have found within devil scats include a woolen sock, aluminium foil, the head of a snake, and half a pencil. After a while, the poop turns white, very like a hyena's faeces. This is due to the high levels of bone in both of their scats. Like many carnivores, their poop is pungent and full of information for other devils. All the devils in an area like to poop communally in the same spot, known as a devil latrine. This serves as a kind of community notice board, letting local devils know who visited and when, possibly giving information about their age and breeding condition. Mungo does some marking, known as anogenital dragging. It may look like a male marking his territory, but females also do this, and devils aren't really territorial. The exact purpose of dragging is unknown, but it may be associated with the transmission of chemical signals, a form of communication. Tail positions, erect fur and head elevations are other non-vocal means of communication. In devil society, the female of the species is not the gentler sex, and these two young females are arguing over a scrap of meat. It's not very big, but to a devil, it's still worth fighting over. The girl's stiff legs and high head positions, as well as gaping jaws, signal loud and clear, back off. But if all communication fails, for a devil, a fight is the preferred method of sorting an issue out. Although he has to be subordinate to top dog Carlos, Mungo is able to dominate many of the other local devils. Mungo's at the bottom of the bank, warning the other devil not to come any closer. His vocalizations intensify. A win for Mungo. He's chased off the interloper. With this level of daily aggression, it's unsurprising that the devils can sustain damage. Injuries are everywhere. Battered faces, tattered ears, and scarred backsides. This low-ranking male has lost the whole of his upper lip and part of his nose. He tries to avoid other males and get some rest during the daytime. But Mungo is on the prowl. He's a much higher ranking, more aggressive devil. The disfigured devil has to give way. But Mungo hasn't finished making his point. He follows and pins down the other male, forcing him into a confrontation. Which leaves the disfigured male cowering. After a hard day or night of inflicting or receiving grievous bodily harm, the devil typically retires to its den. It may regularly use 3 or 4 dens, and once established, it tends to use the same ones for life. In the mating season, it may share its home, but for the rest of the year, it's a cosy den for one. These tend to be within banks, in dense vegetation near water, or even in a small natural cave. Sometimes it will take the time to dig out its own den in a preferred location. Or it may use a discarded wombat burrow. Wombats are fellow marsupials, although unlike the devil, they're vegetarian. They like similar habitat, and being slightly larger than the devil, their burrows are roomy and make for a spacious devil apartment. Mungo leaves his den to start exploring his patch for food. The disfigured male has blundered into the area, right on top of Mungo's den. If the more dominant devil notices him, he'll be attacked. But his outstanding sense of smell alerts him to the danger just in time, before Mungo's able to get into attack position. This time, he gets away safely. Out looking for food, Mungo runs into Carlos. It's a good opportunity to test the waters once more and see who's top dog. Carlos once again emerges triumphant, retaining the rights to first claim of a carcass and preferential treatment from the females come breeding season. Carlos retires to his den for some peace and quiet. Although, being a devil, he's not quiet for long. Tasmania is a paradise for animal life, but the devils don't get everything their way. The devil's love of carrion is often their downfall. As they try to feed on an easy source of carrion, roadkill, they frequently become it themselves. But moves are now underway to try and boost devil numbers through a conservation approach known as rewilding. This involves releasing health-checked devils from captive populations into the Tasmanian wilderness. These astonishing carnivores have short but action-packed lives. With their monumental anger management issues and zero-tolerance attitude, for a devil, every day is an adventure. Despite treating their fellow devils with extreme prejudice most of the time, they're able to share a meal for the benefit of all. Full of character, their deafening volume, their tenacity, and their ability to clean the land make them one of Tasmania's most fascinating and useful creatures. Australia's Tasmanian devils. They have the most infamous reputation of any of the country's marsupials. Pint-sized pugilists and dedicated meat-eaters, these spirited scrappers also have another side. They're committed parents, nurturing and patient. They're also heroic defenders of their pouch-reared young. Raising their babies in the grasslands and woods of Tasmania, an island state of Australia. It's just one corner of this colossal, ancient continent. Home to some of the planet's most unusual and fascinating animals. This is the secret life of the Tasmanian devil. Tasmania has over 68,000 square kilometres of glorious habitat. With a small human population, much of the island is still a beautiful and tranquil wilderness. But there is one Tasmanian animal who shatters the peace. One of the island's most argumentative species. The Tasmanian devil. It's evening in late March, breeding season for the mostly solitary devils, and this 2-year-old male is setting out from his den to look for females, or at least a little food. Although devils do move around in the daytime, dusk is when they become most active. Their eyesight is adapted to work best at night, when they look for live prey and scavenge for carrion. But today, he's not only scavenging, but on a quest for a mate. The devil breeding season is usually only a few weeks long. So the devils must ensure they make the most of it. This female is 2 years old, and it's her first breeding season. Devils usually become sexually mature at this age, although sometimes the females can be ready earlier. She has a special roll of fat stored on the top of her neck, especially for the breeding season, because, perhaps unsurprisingly in such a rowdy animal, devil mating has its fair share of combat. Just because a male's decided on his lady, it's not the end of the story. First, the males fight over a female. And like most devil altercations, it's no holds barred. Tasmanian devils are some of the feistiest creatures in the animal kingdom. They have a huge range of both vocal and non-vocal methods of communication, from varying their head positions and placatory yawns to the spine-chilling screeches of the full-blown fracas. The devil motto seems to be, if in doubt, fight it out. Disagreements can volcanically erupt into violence over a tiny scrap of food. Or just having the right of way. These animals have some of the strongest jaws in the world, and many a devil derriere is in a perpetual state of laceration. Both sexes are happy to get involved in a battle royale, but many of the fights are between males. Male devils spend the whole year determining who is the most dominant among them in an area. They do this by rigorously disputing everything they come across, for any reason. And it's at mating time that the benefits of being the top dog become apparent. Come breeding season, it's usually the dominant male that will win the battle. This makes him more attractive to the female, but it's still not a foregone conclusion that he'll get the girl. Once he's beaten off the competition, he still has to prove his worth to the female by wrestling with her. If she's not impressed, she'll reject him by biting at his face. Many of the facial injuries seen on males around this time of year are from females spurning the male's advances. If she accepts his proposition, though, she allows him to proceed with his rather rough courtship. Mating takes place in his den, and he drags her there by the roll of fat on her neck. Once he's secured his female, mating is almost continuous for up to 5 days at a time. Throughout this entire period, he keeps her in his den, guarding her from other males. When she needs to go out to eat and drink, he escorts her. Eventually, their association will end. The male will then mate with other females. The female devil can ovulate 3 times in as many weeks, and she too will go on to mate with other partners. This usually leads to the females giving birth to babies with different fathers for optimal genetic diversity. The pregnant female moves to her special maternity den. Adult devils usually move between several dens that they call home. Favourite den sites are within hollow logs, rock crevices, or even abandoned wombat burrows. Wombats are also marsupials, although they're vegetarian. They often choose to make burrows at the base of trees. Being quite a lot bigger than devils, their old homes make for spacious subterranean maternity dens. Whatever kind of den the mother-to-be chooses, its location is carefully selected to provide protection from predators. The female has a typically short marsupial pregnancy of around 18 days. Babies are usually born in mid-April, fall in Australia. She gives birth to 20 or more tiny babies, each no bigger than a split pea, who make their way to their mother's backwards-facing pouch. The devil babies clamp onto a teat, which swells up inside their mouths, firmly attaching them to mum. The mother only has 4 teats in her pouch. It's a life or death race. The first babies to arrive survive, and the rest perish. This ensures that only the very fittest of the babies go on to form the next generation of devils. Once the survivors make it to the pouch, they stay there for the next 4 months. During this time, they never relinquish their teat. Even when they emerge from the pouch, they continue to suckle until they're 6 months old. This relatively long period of lactation and suckling is a defining characteristic of marsupials like the devils. Along with their pouch, it's one of the things that differentiates them from placental mammals like dingoes. Mammals are a very large and incredibly diverse family who've adapted to live in many different environments. Marsupials, humans, wild dogs, bats, they're all part of the mammal clan. Marsupials, like devils, have extremely short pregnancies, giving birth to unformed offspring, which do the rest of their developing inside the pouch. Their reproductive investment is placed in lactation and suckling, rather than the long gestation of their placental cousins. Most members of the mammal family, nearly 94% of today's mammals, are placentals. This means the females have a placenta attached to the uterus wall that exchanges nutrients and waste between the blood of the mother and the fetus. The reproductive strategy of placental mammals is to keep the fetus gestating inside the mother for as long as possible. Both systems have their pros and cons. The young, carried around inside a placental for such a long period, acts as an energy drain to the mother as she internally nourishes the fetus. Its bulk limits her mobility and could mean she can't get away from a predator. And there are risks to the mother associated with giving birth to such large, well-developed babies. As marsupials, the devils avoid these risks by giving birth to minuscule young, and their short pregnancies need fewer calories and less energy to sustain them. But once the young are born, they have a longer nursing period. Devils feed their young for around 6 months, and milk is expensive to make in energy terms. It's a trade-off. Marsupials are also more limited in form. Whilst placental mammals can be in almost any configuration, flippered, winged, hooved, marsupials are much more restricted. Marsupial babies, like devils, need to actively climb from the birth canal to the pouch. So, front paws that are developed enough to grasp onto fur are essential. This has limited their evolutionary possibilities. Like devils, lots of marsupials give birth to many times more babies than they can possibly suckle. Those that don't make it are generally eaten by the mother, so nothing goes to waste. Locally known as imps, the devil babies, or joeys, are now 5 months old. Devil rate of growth is phenomenal. At birth, they're about the size and weight of a lentil. By adulthood, at age 2, a male will grow to around 11 kilos. That's around 15,000 times heavier. By contrast, the average cat increases its weight only around 20-fold from birth to maturity. At 5 months old, the imps are only just starting to be weaned off mum's milk. They're eating small amounts of meat now, but they'll take milk from mum for around another month. The weaning process takes place December through to February, the Australian summertime, when food is plentiful. This devil den is situated under a fallen log. After dark, devils become more active, and it's a good time for the babies to take the night air. They romp around with each other and with their mum. Playing chase and having a little wrestle. Good practice for later life when they'll need as much experience of rough and tumble as they can get. But however much they frolic, they stay close to the safety of the den. This mum started off with 4 babies, one for each of her teats. But only 2 have made it this far. To protect the survivors, like all devil mums, she's carrying her young everywhere on her back. Devils are contentious and quarrelsome beasts. But when they have young, all their usual ferocity is channeled into protecting their precious babies. And transporting them like this gives her the best chance of defending them. They only just fit on her. They use their non-retractable claws to get a really good grip on her fur. The babies may seem well formed, but if mum accidentally leaves one behind, it won't be able to fend for itself. It would make an easy snack for one of Tasmania's other carnivorous marsupials, an adult spotted-tailed quoll. Quolls are related to the devils, and there are 2 kinds on Tasmania. One is the spotted tail or tiger quoll, which is the largest of the quolls. It still comes in at less than half the weight of a devil. Even so, it too is an excellent predator, with long, sharp canines. It's perfectly adapted to the carnivorous life. An adult can easily take a baby devil. Wedge-tailed eagles are another potential predator. So devil mums have to be vigilant and protective. As well as birds of prey and hungry quolls, Tasmania has venomous snakes. a snake makes its stealthy way towards the devil maternity den. The baby's mum is sunbathing nearby. Some Australian snakes have extremely dangerous venom. They inject neurotoxins, which affect the central nervous system, causing the respiratory system to go into failure. If the snake makes it to the den, it could easily kill all of the devil babies. But snakes are careful about prey selection. They don't want to risk an injury that could jeopardise their ability to feed. The snake doesn't want to tangle with a fully grown devil. The devil mum coolly confronts the serpent. She's far too much for the snake to handle. And it swiftly changes direction. It's a month later. The babies are 6 months old and are no longer feeding from mum as often. They're finding their own food, mostly invertebrates and small lizards at this stage. They still live inside the den with their mother. But they're now more independent, so mum's able to leave them for brief periods. She's gone scavenging. The young devils are exploring their environment. It's a vital opportunity to learn about the world around them. Devils will eat almost anything. Whatever they can find is a candidate for lunch. They dig for insects. Experiment with eating moss. They even give stinging nettles a try. They're still learning what they can and can't eat. Young devils don't have the developed dentition of adults, Most noticeably, they lack the long canines that will eventually protrude below their upper lip. As they grow, their heads will become larger and more heavily muscled to support their strong jaws. Kilo for kilo, the devil is the most powerful biter alive, and the baby's canines will need to be long to pierce and pin their prey. Apart from the odd invertebrate, they're not catching large live prey yet, or sharing a carrion meal, so they don't require the very pronounced canines of the adults. At the first sign of danger, they make a dash back to the den. But devil imps are naturally boisterous, and they soon venture back outside. Like many youngsters, they enjoy wrestling. Adult devils keep up an almost constant barrage of growls, wails and hair-raising screams. But these youngsters, like all devil juveniles, are virtually silent, even when indulging in a bit of rough and tumble. Whether this is an evolutionary strategy to keep them safer when they're young and vulnerable is unknown. At this age, they're expert climbers. Their light weight and sharp little claws help them scamper up and down. They can even swap direction halfway across a log. For now, imp life is all about exploration and testing their limits. As they grow bigger and stronger, Mum leaves them for longer periods of time. They still have around another 4 months with their mother, but they're now confident enough to explore by themselves. It's good practice for adulthood, when they'll spend most of their time being solitary. But for now, at 7 months old, the siblings still like to check in with each other. After she's weaned them, Mum then only has a very short amount of time, just a few weeks, before she enters another breeding cycle. Female devils become sexually mature at around 2. From that time up until their deaths just 3 or 4 years later, they spend almost all of their lives pregnant or rearing young. As the siblings grow up, their diet changes. They switch up from invertebrates to small mammals and arboreal species like possums. But the time available for accessing these tree-living species is limited. The siblings are 18 months old. Their bodies have changed and become heavier. They're no longer as agile as they were when they were young imps. They've spotted a bird's nest in this tree. At this time of year, there's a good likelihood of some eggs inside, a real favourite and an easy source of protein for this scavenger specialist. They both want to try and get to the nest. But it's easier said than done. Although the siblings frolic together as babies, they're now in competition with each other for food. Around 60% of devil juveniles don't survive through to full adulthood, so getting to this nest first is now a serious matter. The male makes the first attempt. He casts about trying to find the best purchase. His long, sharp claws should be ideal for this task. But his skill level just isn't up to it. At 18 months old, he's reached the age when devils are just starting to get too big and heavy to climb anymore. In 6 months' time, he won't be able to climb at all. The female goes next. But she's not having much luck either. They're at an impasse. And in the land of the devil, there's only one thing to do when they're frustrated. Take it out on each other. As well as starting to lose their climbing ability, something else has happened to the young devils. They're now fully fledged screamers, especially during a fight. Having vented their vexation, it's time to try for the nest again. The male has another go. He scrabbles around, looking for a claw hold, but the tree is defeating him. But all is not lost. He uses his devil ingenuity to widen his search. He discovers an alternative route up to the nest. And gets there first. As he wolfs down the contents, his sibling follows his path. And she's not happy. Having got rid of him, she checks for any leftovers. But everything's gone. Another youngster comes to check it out too, just in case. So, just to show that there are hard feelings, she starts a massive fight with the nearest devil. And he's left in no doubt of her disgruntlement. Adult devils are efficient hunters of live animals. But devils of all ages favour animal remains. In the Australian bush, these are fairly common finds, and the devil makes full use of them. Their behaviour at a feeding site is unusual for a mostly solitary animal. They're able to share the food. Young devils must learn the etiquette of how to eat together. While their normal contact with each other is invariably violent, at a carcass they adopt ritualised postures to avoid hurting each other. Although they snarl and snap at each other, their teeth rarely connect. While the dominant male may chase off a lower-ranking devil, he usually doesn't bite it. What's happening is relatively harmonious cooperation, so all the devils get their share of the carcass. Even from its earliest days, devil life is high velocity, high energy and high drama. Fighting is a way of life, and even old age doesn't lessen their ferocity. Their lifespan in the wild is only around 5 or 6 years. This devil is now 5 years old and is almost blind. He's too old to be considered by the females for mating purposes. They favour fit, dominant males. His days of baby making are over. The battle-scarred senior can still manage the distinctive devil lope. It's a strange, shuffling gait that comes from his front legs being longer than his rear legs. His heavy, overdeveloped head and neck, which can account for around 40% of his total weight, also contributes to his rocking horse-like stride. But his teeth, which are a huge part of the devil's fighting arsenal, are now starting to deteriorate. Some animals are able to replace teeth as they fall out, but the devil has just one set that is fully erupted by around 2 years of age. By the age of 5, his teeth will be worn, damaged or absent. If they continue to worsen, he won't be able to compete with the other devils and may slowly starve. Still equipped with a good sense of smell and sharp hearing, the ageing devil heads for a fallen log. These are a good source of insects, easy prey for a devil no longer able to vie with youngsters at a carcass. Soon he's got company. His weaponry might be failing, but it doesn't stop him putting the unwelcome guest in his place. Even at 5 years old, elderly by devil standards, attitude is everything. Many devils haven't been lucky enough to make it to his age. Their populations and genetic diversity have been severely reduced by facial tumour disease, a condition they pass to each other through biting. Their numbers are now estimated to be in the low tens of thousands. Before the disease arrived, young devils had a less than 50-50 chance of surviving to adulthood. Now their odds are even lower. To fight back, conservationists are building healthy, quarantined populations of devils within Tasmania and on the Australian mainland. A small number of devils bred in captivity were released onto Maria Island National Park, off the east coast of Tasmania, in 2012. With no predators and as yet no facial tumour disease, it's hoped the island will be a safe haven in which devil numbers can increase. So far, the devils are thriving. Each breeding season has been a success, and the original numbers of devils have now more than tripled. Tasmanian devils are some of nature's most bombastic animals. But with a much softer side. These meat-loving marsupials make caring mothers who nurture their young for long periods of time, protecting them from anything that may try to hurt them, no matter how deadly. Vocal, belligerent, and totally irrepressible, the devil is a real Tasmanian icon.
Hey Love Nature fans, be sure to like and subscribe to catch all our wild animal stories. Get closer to nature right here on YouTube.